listening to the Pohu Experience.
Yo, the other day I posted a snapshot of my one pot soup and I just got flooded with DMs. I just got flooded with questions on, how do I make that? What's in it? And I just thought, you know what? I might as well break it down here as a recipe breakdown. So we're going to start today's episode with recipe breakdown. It's going to be an exclusive, only one recipe, which is my one pot soup recipe. Now, I want to give you the thought process into this, right? So currently my goal is to lose fat because remember, a couple of years back, I went on a bulk, never took the time to cut off the fat. And right now my primary goal is just to cut out all that fat and go back to a more normal weight range again. And so my meals is based around that goal, meaning I'm trying to eat as whole foods and lean protein as possible because that means every day I'll still get to feel really full without exceeding my calories. And so this one pot of soup is actually a very good example of how I design my meals to kind of like maximize fullness, maximize enjoyment, and still be 100% on point with my goals. And I want to say that first because there's a lot of things you could add to this soup to make it a lot more interesting, a lot more fun. It's just if I do that, then it doesn't really align with my goals. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to min-max. I like to go all in if I know I can sustain it rather than kind of, smell the roses along the way. I mean, if I ever do go into cravings territory, yes, I will deal with the cravings and design my meals to be more leaning towards enjoyable. But if not, I just kind of want to focus on the long-term goals, put in the work every day and go from there. My pot of soup is actually really, really simple. Very simple to make, very simple ingredients, and very easy to track as well. So I'll break it down. It has 2 eggs, 240 grams of salmon, 50 grams of mushroom, 100 grams of pumpkin, and 100 grams of spinach. And all this added together is roughly 540 calories, 68 grams of protein. And usually I'll have a side of rice with this. So in total, the calories, including the rice, would be closer to say 700. But there are times where I enjoy my carbs in lunch instead. This is usually my dinner. If I enjoy more carbs during lunch, then I'll skip the rice and just have this. And it's actually really, really filling. And I'll go through each one of these ingredients so you get kind of understanding of why I included inside. So the egg and salmon is my primary source of protein, but also my primary source of fat because I just don't really get much fat in my diet on a regular basis unless I put extra effort into it because I tend to skip it. Whenever I'm looking at my Carbon app and see what I've eaten all day, if there's extra calories, I'm spending it on carbs. It's very rarely that extra calories I'm going to spend it on protein or fats. I'm always into carbs, more noodles, more rice, some crackers, some Doritos, whatever it is, it's usually carbs. It's not protein or fats. But then protein, I've already planned it out throughout the day, so that's easily included in my diet already, and fats always gets lost. So over time, I realized that I'm just not getting enough fat in my diet, and I started to feel it was messing around with my hormones and all that. Like something just didn't feel right, so I started to make sure that I'm hitting a minimum of at least 50 grams of fat every single day. So that's the main reason for egg and salmon in my pot of soup rather than say chicken, beef, and all that. Whereas I could go with a more fatty cut of like pork or beef or chicken, but I wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Fish oil, nutrition-wise, is better than beef oil or pork oil. And the fats from egg yolks are considered good fats as well. So that's the primary reason for choosing eggs and salmon. Mushrooms and pumpkins are my fillers because mushrooms and pumpkins are very, very low on calories. So you could really eat a lot and then feel really full from it, not really need to worry that you're overeating. Like 100 grams of pumpkin is only 26 calories. That's pretty insane. Can you imagine eating like 200, 300 grams of pumpkin? That's only like 70, 80 calories. It's very, very little, but it's very high in volume. And you for sure in that meal, at least within an hour, are going to feel very, very full. And not to mention, this whole thing is soup based. So even if I'm not feeling full from the food, finishing the soup is just like, it gets to the point where if I stuff any more food, I really go into zombie mode. And so this is roughly like the maximum volume I've designed for this meal for me because I've tried to add more and I realized I just don't feel good. Like I feel very full. I'm still within my goals, but I just feel like shit afterwards because it's just way too filling. So this pot of soup has been adjusted many, many times. And I feel right now as it is the most perfect for what I'm looking for right now. And so the final thing, the 100 grams of spinach, that's really just to get my veggies in every single day. So, I could go through the whole day not really eating any veggies, but know that if I'm having this one pot of soup every day, I'm hitting my vegetables every day as well. It's like 100 grams of spinach is quite a lot and I quite enjoy it. And you might ask, why spinach? And there's really no reason other than I really enjoy it and I miss it. Because before when I was meal prepping, it was usually cabbage or broccoli because cabbage and broccoli stay well in the fridge, whereas spinach spinach doesn't, so I never really had a chance to use spinach. Ever since I was making this one pot a day, every time I'm making it, it's completely fresh. So it makes sense for me to choose spinach because I get to enjoy it at its freshest state as well. And as for the seasoning, what I try to do is I try to use as little water as possible. I mean, the way I cook it is I put everything other than the eggs and the spinach into the pot, and I fill the pot with water just so it barely covers everything. Sometimes maybe even not covering everything, because once the mushrooms are cooked, they become smaller. And then I'll let it boil for roughly like 1 to 2 minutes before I start adding in the stems of the spinach, and then I'll add in the eggs, and then I'll add in the leaves of the spinach, turn the fire off, and it'll be ready. Oh, right. And after everything starts boiling before the egg and the spinach, that's when I add the instant noodle seasoning, the Shin Ramen seasoning, and just mix it around and mix it into a nice broth. That's the way I'm making the soup. And every day it feels like I'm having instant noodles, except with no noodles, and it just tastes really, really great. Like, I'm really enjoying this like mini personal hot pot experience every day for, I think I lost count. This has been maybe a month or a little bit more already, and it's become a really comforting meal. I remember there were some days I was just kind of tired, didn't really feel like cooking, and then surfing Uber Eats, seeing what I could get. And everything that I went through, just like, oh man, I gotta recalculate my calories, proteins, and all that. I can't be bothered to do that too. And I have all the ingredients to make this pot in the fridge. It's like, all right, might as well go and make this. It doesn't take that much time either. I think from taking things out in the fridge, putting it in the pot on the fire to it's all ready to be eaten, I think it's like 15-20 minutes max. Like, the salmon that I get is already pre-cut, so I just have to dump it in. The mushrooms, I don't even cut. I just use my hands to peel into like quarters. The egg is easy. The spinach takes the most work because the spinach that I'm buying has a lot of dirt, so I still have to wash it, but it's not really a big deal. I do remember there was some times where I was cooking and I was just so lazy. I'm like, man, I don't feel like washing, but if I don't wash this, I don't get my veggies for the day. And also, spinach so far has never let me down. It tastes really good, especially its Shin Ramen broth. It's good. There's nothing to complain about. And the little thing that I like to do is I put in the egg so late because I want it to still be kind of gooey, so it's kind of like a poached egg inside. So if I'm having this pot with rice, I scoop out the egg, put it on top of the rice, and then break it apart, let the yolk go all over the rice, and as you're eating it with the soup, it's a very, very nice marriage. But yeah, that's basically my one pot soup. There's no more, no less. It's very, very simple. I think anybody could do. You don't need culinary experience. You don't need cooking experience to do. This is just put in ingredients, put in water, boil, put in this instant noodle seasoning, mix it around, and you end up with a very wholesome meal. So this was a topic that I wanted to talk about last week, but we kind of ran out of time. I mean, last week was our longest episode. It was like 50 minutes because when I was recording, it was getting close to 2 hours. And usually when I'm recording the raw podcast file, it's at most an hour 30, an hour 40. But last week it was getting close to 2 hours. I was like, oh, this is going to be a long one if I keep going. And I haven't been cutting this podcast up into shorts or clips yet, which I'll do soon, which I will also talk more about later on. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is abs. And it's to give you a realistic picture of what it's like to have abs year round, because I think it's not as great as most have imagined. And I've gone through this myself. Somebody that never had abs suddenly had abs, very excited about abs, and then realized, oh, this is a lot of work. Let's break it down point by point. So remember, to get abs, there's no special thing that you have to do. You just have to be in a low enough body fat and your abs are going to show. It's a different amount for men and women. Men is typically, you'll start seeing your abs between like 10 to 50% body fat. For women, it's closer to 14 to 20%. Regardless, around that body fat, you're going to start seeing your abs. Now, whether your abs are big or small, how they look, that's a different story. We're just talking about revealing your abs, right? Because everybody has abs. Abs is a muscle that everybody has. It's just if you want them to reveal themselves, you have to be below a certain amount of body fat. So all the things out there talking about what exercises to get abs and whatnot, those will build your abs in terms of make your ab muscles bigger. But just because they're bigger doesn't mean they'll reveal themselves unless they're under that certain amount of body fat. So in other words, if you want to maintain abs year round, you got to maintain yourself at quite a low amount of body fat. And there's actually a lot of disadvantages to that. It's not as happy-go-lucky as most people would think. Because number one is maintaining a low amount of body fat means your weight is on the lower end. And when your weight is on the lower end, your TDEE is on the lower end, which means the amount of calories that you have to eat to maintain your weight is lower, meaning there's less room to enjoy food. In other words, let's say you're male, you're maintaining body fat at around 10 to 12%, which is quite low. low, your maintenance calories could be about 2000 calories. Whereas if you just maintain 15 to 18% instead, which is still a healthy range, you could probably eat up to 2003 to 2004. That's like an extra meal already. That's like an extra indulgence that you could have, but quality of life is just a lot better. And so trying to maintain abs, a lower amount of body fat, it also means the chances of nutrient deficiencies are a lot higher because you got to really be hitting all your nutrients with a less amount of calories available. Like you have less room to enjoy your meals. And if you end up enjoying your meals more often than usual, then if you're not careful, the chances of nutrient deficiencies are a lot higher. Like you could think, oh, I'm hitting all my calories, I'm maintaining my abs, and I'm enjoying, my cheesecake every day. But then that cheesecake took up the room for your fruits and veggies, so you're not having as much fruits and veggies. And then, that's when potential health issues could occur. Of course, that's in a very, very long term, right? If you're doing this in the short term, it's really not a big deal at all. But it's just something to keep in mind that maintaining abs, there's these things to think about because the quality of life is just a little bit lower. The possible mental stress, the unhealthy obsession, or disordered eating that could come with maintaining abs, those are all really, really real things. And those things could be solved if you didn't maintain your abs. And by not maintaining your abs, I don't mean like you just completely don't have abs. It's just perhaps they're less visible. Perhaps they're not as prominent. If you go check out sample pictures of somebody that's like 12% body fat versus like 15% body fat, it's really not that big of a difference. Like definitely 12% looks more prominent. You could really see those bricks there. And 15%, it's still kind of there, the shape, just not as clear. But life could be very different at those two percentages. And of course, then that continues on to like your social life, right? You can't enjoy as much food to maintain your abs. So you have to be a lot more careful with how much you're celebrating, how much you're going out, how much you're indulging yourself. And it's just that little cycle that, I mean, if you're okay with it, if it's totally fine with you and it's a lifestyle you're able to maintain, that's totally fine. My whole point of bringing up this topic is to open up the discussion, is to make you aware that, these are things that could happen. If you're cool, that's cool. But if you're not, realize that there's other options as well. And maybe this dream that you're chasing of like year-round abs is maybe a little bit far-fetched. Because out of all those disadvantages, right, there's only one real advantage to having abs, and that is looking good. There's no other reason to have abs. It's like, it's to look good. It's to feel good about yourself. And it's even a question mark how good you feel about yourself if others aren't really giving you the praise or, you're not really showing it off every day. Like, it's really just a looking good thing. There's no health benefits to having abs. There's no, career advancement to having abs unless you're like a bodybuilder or something. That's a different story. It's just this thing where you have a lot of considerations and a lot of things you got to watch out for. And the good part is really based on you. I mean, if you're somebody that doesn't like to show off, if you're somebody that doesn't really care about looking good or not, I don't know, maybe you want to rethink abs. Abs is not a necessity at all. Abs is absolutely an ego boost, but that's pretty much all that it is. I mean, I'll give you my full story on abs. So growing up, being the fat kid, I never dreamed about abs. I thought before that, this is probably something I'll never achieve in this lifetime. I was born this way. It is what it is. I never really fussed about abs. And as I was going through my weight loss journey, as I was going closer towards around 50% body fat, I was taking daily mirror selfies and I started to see that, holy crap, that looks like abs. And it looks like it's undeniable. It's like, oh my God, am I actually going to have abs as I keep going down this journey? And from 50%, I went to 12% and my abs were really showing. And that's the time when I was like, let's see how far I could go. And so I kept going to like 9 to 10%. And that was a time where my abs were showing sitting down. I just did not have much body fat at all. I mean, I didn't look like some GQ magazine guy. I was just a really skinny guy that had abs. But I remember during that period of time, I was really happy. I was like lifting up my shirt every time I passed a mirror. I was, rubbing my abs all the time like it's a washing board. It was a new achievement that I was really happy and proud of. But then I also didn't really have much chance to show off, right? I don't have a habit of being shirtless at home, so I'm always wearing something. The times that I went for a swim or the beach during that period of time is probably 2 or 3 times. And all that time, I think I'm showing off my abs and I'm looking around like nobody cares. Like nobody cares at all. It's only me happy for myself, a self high. And I think it was exactly that. It was over time realizing that nobody cares about my abs and that my abs don't exactly look like GQ magazine guys, that I decided, I need to start working out. I need to build my muscle because all I am right now is this skinny ass skeleton, and having abs really isn't increasing my quality of life at all. It's actually making me a lot more stressed out because to maintain 9-10% body fat, I think I was at a point where I could only eat like around 1,800 calories a day, and that was maintenance. Like that sucked. Like right now, my maintenance is around 2,400. But I also totally understand that if you've never achieved abs in this lifetime and you want to achieve it at least once, I think that's a totally cool goal. I mean, go and try it out. Go and aim for it. There's really nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to remind you that once you achieve it, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to maintain it, or not that you won't be able to maintain it, but that maintaining it might not be a sustainable or realistic goal. There's a lot of other things to consider. I really wanted to talk about the realisticness of having abs year round because I was having a couple of conversations in the past where some people were just really adamant about having abs. And I think it's okay. It's a great goal to chase, but I also don't want their bubble to burst after they hit their goals and kind of give you like a pre-warning, like, hey, totally cool to go for abs. But remember, if you're going to maintain it, there's a lot of sacrifices that has to go on that might not be worth it. You might want to think of it in a different light rather than thinking you're going to achieve abs and maintain it forever. Because I think that's a very suffering mentality, meaning that it takes a lot of work and effort to maintain your abs. And especially when you got there with the momentum of, your weight loss journey, you just kept losing weight until you have abs. Because once that momentum goes away and it becomes a maintenance thing, maintenance starts to feel a little bit like a deficit. Like you're not enjoying more food because you want to keep yourself at a lower weight, at a lower body fat. And then that's when, mental stress comes in. That's when life isn't as great as it seems, even though you've hit your weight goals. And so that would be when you would reevaluate what your true end goals are. So let's talk about 10,000 steps every single day, which is my current step goal that I've been able to hit, I think, every single day in 2023 so far. And even before that, I think I was hitting it quite consistently. So throughout my experience all this time, I don't think there's a hack on how to hit 10K steps. It's really just being aware of how much steps you're taking on a regular basis and planning around that. So for me, I kind of have a really good idea of how much steps I'm taking every day, even without checking my Fitbit, because I worked out based on my habits how many steps it takes. Like on weekdays when I send the kids to school, when I pick them up from school, I've calculated that every time I send them to school, it's 2,000 steps. So I know today if I send them to school and I pick them up after school, that's 4,000 steps right there. Then I've also worked out if I'm at home all day, remember I work from home, if I'm at home all day, the amount of movement I have just around home, just, everything, going to the toilet, cooking, washing dishes, doing laundry, whatever it is, my everyday is also roughly 2,000 steps. So that means on a regular day, if I send the kids to school, I pick them up and I just do my home stuff regularly, that's 6,000 steps right there. And in order to hit my 10,000 steps daily, that means I have 4,000 left to figure out. Now, y'all know I have the home walking treadmill. So usually I'll just step on that, and I've worked out on that walking treadmill at a 4.5 speed, which is a very leisurely speed, but you still break a sweat after like 20-30 minutes. Every 10 minutes is roughly 1,000 steps. So that means if I step on it for 40 minutes, that's already 10,000. And that's kind of how I've been operating. I've just been very aware of how much steps I'm taking. If I'm a little bit short, I maybe spend more time on the walking treadmill or take that trip to the market to buy that ingredient that I was too lazy to buy. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get steps in. It's just really about the planning. And remember, 10,000 steps isn't some magical number. It's just a number I gave myself to challenge myself. There is no such thing like, 10K, 9K, 12K. That's all. It's all great. I think if you're really just starting out, just aim for 6K. 6K is already really good for a daily basis. And if you're an overachiever, I don't think you need to go past 16K. 16K and above is a lot. I think a big part of achieving 10,000 steps every day for me is I realized that I just became less lazy. I became more willing to walk. So there are times, when I'm waiting for an elevator and it's taking a little bit long, in my head, I'll be like, might as well take the stairs, get that extra steps in. Because the more steps I get in my day to day, the less time I have to spend on the walking treadmill. And so it's also made me look forward to, like shopping with mommy. Now it's a lot more fun for me because I also achieving my own goals. Every time we take the kiddos out or we go to the mall or something, that's like easily, I'll come back home without having walked on the walking treadmill and it's like 7,000, 8,000 steps already. And I just have to walk 10, 20 minutes on a walking treadmill and I've hit it. And so I also want to emphasize that before I got the walking treadmill, I was just walking back and forth at home, like pacing back and forth, walking in circles. Like I did that to get my steps in. So like the walking treadmill is really a luxury. It's not a necessity at all. But I would also say that I think it's one of my best purchases in the past year because it just made steps like a non-issue. There have even been days where I just stayed home all day, didn't take the kids to school, didn't pick them up, just, really at home all day, which means I'm only getting 2,000 steps from my daily life at home. But then hitting 10,000 steps, it's still not that much of a challenge because it just means I probably have to be on the walking treadmill for an hour or a little bit more, which because it's a walking treadmill, I can actually do stuff, right? I could watch shows, I could watch Netflix, I could watch YouTube, I could do work. I've even worked out that at a 4.5 speed, it's hard for me to carry a long conversation, like a 30-minute conversation. 4.5 speed is a little bit too fast and I start start to kind of get out of breath, but at a 4 speed, I can hold a normal conversation for an hour. That's totally fine. So sometimes I schedule calls and voice meetings during my treadmill session. So it's like 2 birds with 1 stone again. Or if I have to work on my phone, reply to emails or whatnot, I realize at the speed of 3.5, it's totally achievable. And so it's just become a thing I kind of integrated into my life. And I think if you were to ask me, how do you achieve 10,000 steps every day? I think the short answer is you just have to plan it out, right? If you're aware of how much steps you're having every day as your normal daily life, then you can make a plan around it. Maybe if you take the bus or you take the train, maybe you walk to the next station and that amount of steps is around 1,000, 2,000 steps, and that helps you achieve your goals. Or maybe instead of going to the wet market 2 times a week, go 3, 4 times a week. Make excuses to walk more, because I really think there's no harm in that. And I think the great thing about steps is you could always make it worthwhile. Like, it's never just steps, right? It's never just so-called wasted time on steps. You could be on a phone call while taking your steps. You could watch a show while you're on steps. You could be online shopping. You could be researching while you're getting some steps in, which isn't exactly the natural thing to do, but could be something you plan in. And it's not very difficult at all. I think for me, these past couple of weeks, I've also started to feel that hitting 10,000 steps every day is just a little achievement thing for me. Like, no matter how my day has gone, if I've hit my 10,000 steps, I feel like, all right, I didn't waste the day. I wasn't just lazing around. I wasn't being a couch potato, even though those things are okay. But it's just like this very little thing, which actually takes very little effort for me, makes me have that feeling of achievement. It makes me feel better about myself, even if I did nothing, no workouts or whatever on that day, but at least I've got my 10,000 steps in, and it's my effort of becoming a better version of myself. So the next thing I want to talk about, I think I have to give a little bit of context. And the topic is about esports. Esports is a really big part of my life, but I think I just didn't share much of it with this channel because there was just really not much opportunity to. But I think I'll give the full context here so it makes more sense moving forward why I'm so into it. So basically, throughout different eras of my life, I've been a professional esports competitor. And the way I define a professional player is I had a team, I had a salary, we were sponsored, and we were competing on the world level. For me, it started in high school in grade 11 when I was going to LAN shops every day playing CS, playing Counter-Strike. And back then it was like Counter-Strike 1.6. And I remember I started playing during Counter-Strike beta 0.8. It was like a really long time ago. We're talking about 1999 to 2002, around then. And in 2002, my team represented Indonesia to compete in WCG South Korea. We didn't do well at all. We got knocked out in the first bracket. But those years were my first encounter with competitive gaming. And after we lost in 2002, I was in grade 11 going to grade 12, which means the final year of high school. I decided, all right, no more gaming, time to focus on school to make sure I graduate and don't fail or anything. And so esports in my life took a break. And so fast for a couple of years in university, I started to play a lot of Dota. I wasn't really good at RTS type of games because, I came from an FPS background. All I played was CS back then. But then there was a couple of guys that was nice enough to kind of pick me up and really train and teach me how to play the game, because I think they just saw my potential in a sense that I was just really passionate about gaming. I was playing every day, and since I'm spending so much time in the game, they might as well, train me up. And over time, they tested me out in a real game environment and decided I was good enough to make their actual roster. So I started competing in Dota. But Dota, it never got to a point where we competed internationally. We only competed locally because I think we just weren't good enough. And that was also part of my life where there's a lot of transition, right? After university, you got to go find a job. That was also around the time I first met mommy. So there's relationships, career. During that period of time, I just didn't take gaming as seriously, even though we were competing. And I don't want to say it's purely my fault that, we didn't do good as a Dota team, but I guess everybody had something going on. And so it wasn't the team didn't feel as tight as my team back then when I was competing in Counter-Strike, where we were all students. We all had all the time in the day after school and was training every single day. So Dota was a couple of years in my life that also touched the esports realm. And so you fast forward to roughly 2010, 2012, mommy and I got married, we were settling down. And so I started to have the itch again, right? I think it's just part of me to play a competitive game. It's just if I don't play a competitive game for a long time, I start having an itch to want to come back and get that feeling again, get that feeling of competing with others, working hard and, strategizing to win. I think it's something I just really, really love. On top of, I love video games. So it was just an undying passion of mine. And so around 2010, 2011, I picked up StarCraft 2. And the main reason I picked up StarCraft 2 was because it was a one-on-one game. Because in the past, playing Dota, playing CS, there was a lot lot of team issues. Like Dota is 5v5, CS is also 5v5. And so training in-game skills was already a challenge. Training teamwork was also a challenge. On top of that, then you had to deal with everybody's personal life, right? You know, some people couldn't show up to practice, some people going through things in life, and there's just a lot of drama, a lot of things to watch out for. And I decided I want to go back into esports, I want to go back into competitive gaming, but I don't want a team anymore. I want to play one-on-one. I want to do or die by my own hands. And back then, one of the hottest games was StarCraft 2. And so I decided to learn that from scratch. And I thought that having Dota experience, it would transition over to StarCraft really easily. And well, boy, was I wrong. I took, I think, almost 2 years to really build up my skill set. I started as a silver SC2 player, and roughly after a year is when I first hit Grandmasters, and then started to compete and take competition a lot more seriously. And so as I was on that journey, that's also when the first kiddo was born. And when she was first born, you know, being new parents, I had no idea how much work a child took. I completely underestimated it and very quickly realized that, oh shit, I can't go on playing StarCraft 2. StarCraft takes way too much time on a daily basis that I don't have anymore now that I have a child. And so I need to give it up. And of course, it was an easy choice. There was no way I was going to choose gaming over my child. And so my StarCraft 2 career came to an end. And that was around the time when Hearthstone came out, the card game. And people were taking it quite seriously because it was Hearthstone, it was by Blizzard. It was one of the first very decent online card games. And the competitive scene took off almost immediately. And I hopped on that bandwagon, number one, because I got access to the beta. Number two is Hearthstone games are really fast. One Hearthstone game is roughly 5 minutes. A really, really long one might be 10-15 minutes, but that's nothing compared to like a StarCraft 2 game. A StarCraft 2 game could be 20 minutes, and it's 20 minutes of full concentration. You can't miss a single step. While Hearthstone, it's okay, my turn, I put my move, I wait until your turn, see what your move is. Both of us have a 60-second timer to make our move, almost like chess, right? So it's a lot more relaxed, a lot more easier to play somewhat casually. And so having a little bit of hope, I thought, what if I took Hearthstone competitively and competed in it instead of StarCraft 2? It would be a more realistic game to play regularly after having a child. And so I started to grind Hearthstone, and I think the highest I got was worldwide rank 39. But that was in a beta though, when a lot of people were still figuring things out. I think I got kind of lucky to figure out the meta quite quickly. But then over time playing Hearthstone, the meta changes really quickly, and I realized if I don't play for a day or two, then I'm really left behind. And so I gave up that dream too, and my competitive gaming career kind of came to an end there. That's the last time I took any game super seriously and really grinded hard to try to be on top. But all this time, it's just esports competitive gaming has been such a big part of my life. Like I love that culture. I love everything about it. Like I was so excited, you know, when League of Legends had their first big tournament. It was the first $1 million competition. Like, you know, I watched esports go from nothing into a big career, a big industry. And of course, now there's a downfall, but we'll probably talk about that another time. It's something I follow quite closely, you know, which is why I'm still playing like Apex. I still play Hearthstone, but Battlegrounds mode, because it's a lot more RNG, more casual, less stress. But I think that part of me, like competitive gaming, is just something that will probably stick with me for life. It's just something I always have to have. I always will be interested in and will have to have as part of my life. And so that long-winded context, I hope in the future, if I ever talk about like esports, I could just refer to this clip so you know my history with esports. But the thing that I actually wanted to talk about was Olympic esports, because just last week, the Olympics dropped that they're going to have an esports series. And when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, is it becoming true? Has esports evolved that we're going to see esports in the Olympics? So you have like Dota, League of Legends, Apex Legends, CS. You're going to have all these big games and it's going to be like country versus country. Is this what it's come down to? And as I looked further, I realized that's not the case at all. And I'm actually a little bit baffled that this is the direction the Olympics decided to take for Olympic esports. And so basically they announced that there's going to be a couple of esports games that will be competed on the Olympic level. And the games are esports versions of traditional sports. So there's like an archery game, there's a baseball game, there's a cycling game, there's a dancing game, motorsport game, sailing game, tennis, and taekwondo game. And I'm sitting there like dumbfounded, like, what? This this is esports? Like, come on, man. I thought you'd be more on the mainstream side. I thought, Valorant, Rocket League, or even like Tetris, Smash Bros. There's so many titles out there, and this feels like it's like Olympic Wii Sports, which is cute. It's cute, it's fun, but just, I don't know. The disappointment is real. I thought we hit it into the Olympic level, into the mainstream, but apparently not. But they also included chess as one of the esports games, which I can be down with, but chess is on its own. It's not really an esport. I mean, it's just a traditional, I call it just a sport in itself. It doesn't need to be it already has so much history behind it. And like the games they're basing these, esports off of, it's like the laughing with cold sweat emoji. For archery, it has a game called Tic-Tac-Bow, which is, I saw a demo of it, and it's like an archery game where you play tic-tac-toe, and it's a 3x3 archery board. You try to beat each other, shooting it, making sure you're accurate and hit the spot. It's a very like traditional Game Boy kids game. And then baseball is WSCE baseball. Cycling is a game called Zwift. Dance is the Just Dance game. Motorsport is Gran Turismo. Sailing is Virtual Regatta. I don't even know that game. Tennis is Tennis Clash. Taekwondo is Virtual Taekwondo. Like, come on, man. I thought if you're going to put a game like Taekwondo, you got the whole like fighting game community, right? You got, Marvel vs. Capcom. You got Street Fighter. You got Tekken. You have all those games, and you're playing with Virtual Taekwondo. I mean, Just Dance is, I guess Just Dance is okay, but I mean, you could bring back like Dance Dance Revolution or something like that. Well, I guess Just Dance is okay. I won't complain there. Gran Turismo seems fine too, but it's just so baffling. And I just wanted to kind of vent and talk about it because it's kind of disappointing. It's like, I'm actually speechless. I just don't really know what to say. Like, you really took some random games and decided this is going to be part of the Olympics esports series, which I understand there's a lot of like, it's not that easy to just decide, League of Legends or Apex Legends is going to be the Olympic game. I think there's a lot of behind the doors negotiations that has to go into that. But still, I thought, NBA 2K or FIFA would be a much more game that I imagined would be part of the Olympics. But anyway, rant over. I still love esports. I don't know if I'll watch the Olympic esports unless it's like trending on Twitch or on YouTube. I don't even know if this is a step forward for esports as a whole. I mean, esports right now is going through a huge change because a lot of people have realized that esports teams are just not sustainable. It's all based on VC money, and VC money is bleeding away, and there's not much more available after the pandemic and all that. And so a lot of teams are shutting down, but I'll get deeper into that another time now that I've laid out the context for esports on this podcast. But yeah, just wanted to give a mention to the Olympic esports and my disappointment that it wasn't something bigger than I thought it would be. And so the final thing I wanted to talk about today is that I've started to play with AI. I started to play with ChatGPT, and I'm mind blown. I'm completely mind blown by it. I didn't really touch anything AI all this time because I just felt it was all hype. But then over time, seeing Lensa, seeing like an anime being made from AI, having a couple of my friends complain about scams using AI voice, I decided, all right, let me play around with it a little bit and see what the whole big deal is. And boy, was it a big deal. I feel that I'm so late to the party, and I feel that the world is probably going to change a lot in the next 3 to 6 months. And we're entering a phase kind of like the time when a calculator was just invented. Go and research that. Like, what happened when a calculator was just invented, the changes it had for the whole world. And I feel AI becoming more mainstream now is kind of like that. We're going to have tools in our fingertips that we never had before. And I'll walk you through my experience with it so far. So I started to play with ChatGPT. I wanted to see the capabilities of it. A lot of people have said it could help you write code, and I'm no coder. I'm no programmer. I know very basic HTML, like that's it. And that's from the olden days when, you're making websites on GeoCities, Angel Fire, Tripod. Like I was from those days on the internet. And so I asked ChatGPT, hey, can you make me a TDEE calculator? And within like 10 seconds, it gave me the code. And I was like, no way you just gave me this code. So I tried to put it on my website, and it didn't work because it was JavaScript. So then I told ChatGPT, hey, can you make it into HTML? Give it to me in 10 seconds. Then I was like, this is absurd. And I remember it didn't ask me anything. It just gave me a code, right? So I asked ChatGPT, it's like, hey, which formula are you using? Because the TDE calculator has a couple of formulas, and depending on which formula, you will have a different number. And when I asked it, it gave me like general formulas out there currently and the one that it's using. And I was like, oh, I don't want you to use that one though. I want you to use the other one. And it said, okay. And in the next 10 seconds gave me the code for that. I think think the thing that mindfucks me the most is how fast it is. It's immediate. It's like talking to a human being. There's like zero waiting period at all. And anyway, I put that code into my website. It works. It works perfectly. And you know why that's scary to me? Is because for the longest time, I wanted a TDEE calculator on my website, right? And it's there right now. I mean, if you've tried it before, it's that one that's on my website right now, the official one. But that took me a lot of time to figure out. Like, I wanted that calculator on my website maybe since 2019. I didn't get it until like, I think 2020. And I got it because I hired a programmer to write the code for me. It cost me like $200-300 and 14 days. And I thought that was worth it because I'm not a coder. I don't know how to do this stuff. The guy I hired was able to give me exactly what I wanted, because I also wanted some tweaks with it, because like all TDE calculators out there, they let you choose your activity level, right? And I wanted to take that out for mine and just make sure that anybody that uses mine is automatically set to sedentary, because that gives you the most accurate numbers. It's really hard to accurately estimate the amount of activity level you have. But anyway, like I had to human interaction, have hour or so meetings to get that all started, had to pay an amount, had to wait 14 days. And this freaking ChatGPT gave it to me in like 20 seconds flat. Exactly what I wanted. Of course, it wasn't formatted exactly how I wanted, but those are like super minor changes. It just gave me the code, something that works 100% immediately. And I was just blown away. I was like, this is crazy. This is, for me, somebody that's a one-man team. Like, I now have multiple arms, it feels like. It feels like I have a personal assistant, and this assistant is a freaking genius. And so the other day, I played with it a little bit more. I started to try to treat ChatGPT like a friend and just have like a talk. And I wanted it to give me advice based on all the statistics that it has, right? And so one of the things that I've been thinking about for the past couple of weeks, ever since we started this podcast back up, is should I be making clips or shorts on YouTube? The reason it's not both is because I'm one person. I know that if I do both and I end up having no time to do anything else, all my time will be making these shorts or clips. Like, I want to start out slow. I want to do one first, and if that becomes a regular routine, I have a good template for it, then I'll move on to the other one. So I asked ChatGPT, kind of gave it my stats, like, hey, I'm on IG, I do weight loss content, I'm doing a podcast, and my podcasts are like 40-50 minutes. I'm thinking about making clips or short. What do you think I should do if I could just pick one? And the answer it gave me was like, well, if you do clips, it's usually 3 to 5 minutes, and usually clips will help you build a deeper relationship with your audience, because a lot of people might not have the time to watch a full episode of a podcast, but clips takes out the important bits or bits that they might be interested in, and they get to just watch that instead. Whereas shorts, on the other hand, it's a 60-second or less clip, and it's more for attracting new audiences that don't know who you are to come see what you're all about. And I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, to break it down like that, but that's something I already knew. That's not new information to me. So then while I was asking this, something popped in my head, and I decided to ask, hey chat, I have a theory in my mind and I want to run it by you. And so I told it, before the pandemic, 2019 and before, the social media strategy was to post as much as possible on as many platforms as possible, i.e. the Gary V method. But I've been starting to see the trend where after the pandemic, that method no longer works, and it seems like it's more important to put out quality content on a less regular basis rather than just post as much as possible. It feels like the social media strategy is no longer to cast as wide as a net as possible, but to go as deep as possible with your current audience, which then growth comes from there more towards the form of word of mouth. And that's just a thought process I've had in my mind for a long time as I was, trying to think about the content that I'm making, after I made the 1,000+ daily videos and seeing all the algorithm change and seeing what kind of content I wanted to make. That was kind of a thought process that's been on my mind for a very, very long time, right? But I wanted to know what ChatGPT thought of it. The moment I wrote that to it, it came back and said, you are right. And I was like, what? That's not the answer I'm expecting. It basically said that you're right, due to more and more people being online, more and more creators being online, and algorithm changes and all the social media platforms, it is now more important to put out quality content rather than posting as much as possible where content might not be high in quality. The audience's attention span has become lower, and toleration for junk content has also become lower. And when I first read its response, I was like, is this chat replying to me based on statistics, or is it kind of just agreeing with, something I said, like trying to be nice to me? Like, I didn't know, but I was still, completely blown away. So then I continued and asked chat, okay, knowing the above and knowing that my goal is no longer to cast a wider net, I'm not trying to get more followers. I just want to create content and have a deeper relationship with my current audience. If I had to choose only one, should I do clips or shorts? And it gave me a one-word answer, clips. And I don't know how to describe it. Like, that moment, to me, felt like the stamp of approval, which I know it's not. It's a bot. There's a lot of variables that I need to consider, but it gave me the feeling of, when you're having a discussion with a friend, you're discussing things, and y'all come to the same conclusion and find an answer for a question that you've been having. Because this question about shorts or clips has been on my mind for a long time. I've Googled it to see what a lot of people think, and it's always kind of like both sides, right? It's always, well, here's the advantages and disadvantages of shorts, here's the advantages and disadvantages of clips. It depends on your goals. But then with ChatGPT, it's like, at first it's telling me it depends on your goals, but then once I tell it my goals, it'll tell me that this is the better decision. And I felt so relieved. I don't know how to explain it. Like for me, this question of mine is now solved. That now I know that, okay, in the future, I need to make clips out of these podcast episodes. That's priority number one. Then once that's become routine for me, then I'll move on to shorts. So basically just playing around with ChatGPT, it solved a lingering problem for me, a lingering thought I had. It gave me a conclusion and gave me a step to move forward in. And I thought that was just so incredible. I started to think of things that could be applied in the future. Like, in the future, I think we're not that far off from having like a personal AI assistant. It's like a personalized Siri or Alexa that has much more capabilities. Like you could just tell your AI bot, hey, I need to travel. I need to go to Singapore. Help me find the cheapest flight at this date at this time. And it's going to be all there within 10-15 seconds. Like that's something we've never had in the past. And that is super crazy. It's super crazy to be able to tell your AI assistant like, hey, remember last time on that flight that I went to Malaysia? Yeah, I really like those seats. I want the same seats this time I fly. And you don't even need to know what seats they were. Your AI just goes, got it, and done. And all within probably 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Because the capability of ChatGPT is beyond what I've ever imagined. And when that becomes personalized, there's so much you could do. There's so much that is possible with it. Like imagine everybody has their own AI assistant. And let's say me and you were trying to book an appointment to have coffee someday. So I just tell my AI assistant to talk to your AI assistant. It's like, hey, go figure out which days we're free and put it in a calendar. I'm going to have coffee that day. And that's that. That's it. That's how we make a schedule. That's how you book things. You no longer need to go in the calendar, look at it yourself. It just saves so much time. And I think I haven't fully processed the power of ChatGPT and AI and all this. I think I'm a complete newbie. I'm just starting to get into it. I just got my third eye open and realized that holy shit, the world is going to change. Because as I was playing with all of this, I also was introduced to this program called Descript. And Descript is basically, like if you want me to put it bluntly, it's AI voice deepfake. That's basically what it is. But Descript is actually a tool for audio recorders or podcasters to change your voice recording through text. Now, how it works is you upload your podcast or you upload your audio file into Descript, and it will transcribe it, right? It will have all the words there, and you can change any word there, and it will, using its algorithm, figure out how you usually say that word and just make it a seamless edit into it. So let's say in this podcast, I say, oh, this is all about tigers, but actually I meant to say elephants, but it's already recorded, right? I don't want to go back and record this segment. I could just put it all into Descript. I go to the word tiger, I delete it, and I put an elephant, and it will make me say elephant in my voice, and you couldn't tell the difference. That is crazy. It's a great tool, but I could also see like, oh man, it's Spider-Man. It's, with great power comes great responsibility, because I don't know what to say, but like, man, the world is going to change. No wonder there's so many voice scams now out there. I mean, voice authentication basically just went obsolete. It doesn't work anymore because anybody can deepfake it. Of course, I think now it's kind of jank. There's a lot of bugs. It's not as ironed out as it could be. Give it 3 months, give it 6 months. By that time, you can't tell the difference of what's real, what's not. I mean, I watched this anime that was made by AI, and I highly recommend you go to check it out if you like anime at all. It's only like 7 minutes, but it's done so amazing. It's called Rock, Paper, Scissors anime. You search it on YouTube, you'll find it right away. Everybody's talking about it. And they made a video on how they created the anime, and basically they were able to use themselves as real human actors and make an anime avatar out of it and make it into complete animation, which means you no longer need artists to draw frame by frame. You could have people act it out and it just becomes anime as we know it. And that is revolutionary. That is crazy. How is the world changing so much? Like AI wasn't really a thing 5 months ago. Like, yes, we hear about it. It's not as common. Not everybody's using it. Now that I'm using it, I feel like I'm late to the party. It's like, it's been 4 months. It's been 4 to 5 months. What the hell happened? How is this thing rising and changing so fast? And it's changing how everybody does things. It's like this podcast episode, I tried to use ChatGPT to have like a little brainstorm session. Like, hey, these are the topics I want to talk about. What else do you suggest? And, it suggested some stuff, but it's not stuff I wanted to talk about. So it wasn't really helpful there, but it was helpful to like have a voice there whenever I needed it. It's just like, there's a genius here that knows everything that I could always bounce ideas off of. And that's, I don't know what to say. I think it's quite overwhelming for me. It's very, very exciting. I need some time for it to sink in to see how I'll utilize it for the channel and making content. And, don't worry, I'm not ever planning to use AI to replace me. That's never the goal. I still always want to keep the human element in this channel. But what I really want to use the AI for is to simplify my workflow so that I can do things faster and quicker and make even more content, spend less time on the monkey work. The thing that takes me a lot of time now is like, cutting up the podcast, making sure I'm taking out all the ums and ahs or any sound issues. Like that's things taking me a lot of time. But then I'm pretty sure it's going to get to a point where the AI can kind of figure out my pattern of editing and all that. And there's going to be some kind of tool that makes that process, instead of a, 3-hour process, it becomes a 20-minute process. Like that's what I'm looking forward to. It's just like now if I need a TDEE calculator or some other calculator, I could just tell ChatGPT to make it for me and put it straight on the website and we can all use it right away. It's like there's so many possibilities. Don't know where to go from it yet, but really wanted to share it with you guys because I feel it's so exciting. I think it's something all of us could easily incorporate into our lives now. It's just whether you want to or not. And I do feel those that are against it, are against using AI or whatever, for whatever reason, you're going to end up falling behind. It's like the person that refuses to use the calculator for whatever reason, you're going to fall behind the guy that's using the calculator because they're just going to be able to be quicker in everything that you're doing and more accurate as well. But yeah, I guess I'll end it on that note. I think every day now I'll be playing with like AI and ChatGPT and all that. And, I'll share all my findings every week here to see, where it's progressing towards. And I said it's such a new thing and it's, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's just so freaking exciting. It's so fun. So that's it for this week. It's time for lunch. I think my Subway is here. So till the next one. Peace.
It's the